In this session, we'll see how you can use the new Accellos One Inspect module to build quality into your warehouse process. Accellos One Inspect was originally designed for inbound and outbound quality inspection, but it can be used for much more. You can define your own questions to gather information about orders, receipts, inventory, bins, users. Virtually anything that's tracked in the system can be inspected through a questionnaire. And by system, we don't just mean Accellos One Warehouse or Pulse or Schedule or any of the other Accellos applications. You can connect Accellos One Inspect to any SQL, MySQL, or Oracle database. Let's take a look. We'll start by looking at the inspection manager in Workspace. So all of the items that we have held for inspection are displayed on the inspection manager screen. So inspections can either be performed through this inspection manager, through a tablet, or even through a paper questionnaire. To perform an inspection, we just highlight the item that we want to inspect, we press Begin Inspection, and we answer the questions. So for longer inspections, we may want to save our progress, but for shorter ones, we simply answer our questions, and when we're done, we press Inspection Complete. So once we've completed our inspection, the status is going to be updated in the inspection manager based on our responses, and we're going to be ready to perform our next inspection. So let's take a quick look at how we would set this up. So inspections are defined through the Inspection Work Center and the Inspection Types table. You can define 4 different types of inspections. So a normal inspection will treat every item individually. So if an item fails inspection, only the item being inspected fails. All of the other items that were selected in the same batch won't be affected. A simple batch inspection is going to link inspections. So if an inspection fails, all of the items in the same batch will fail. Simple batch inspections are useful if you're, say, inspecting lot tracked items. If one lot fails, then all of the items within the same lot would also fail. Batch break column inspections are similar to simple batch inspections in that they link inspections, but you can create categories within the inspection to control which items are going to be held when an item fails inspection. So for example, you might want to batch break on the product class column. So if you're inspecting an inbound shipment of milk and cookies and the milk fails inspection, it won't hold the cookies. And finally, external inspections let you select items for inspection, but it doesn't create an associated questionnaire. So this is useful if you want to hold items, but perform the actual inspection using something other than Accellos One Inspect, or they can be used for some more creative interpretations. We'll look at that a little bit later in the presentation. Once we've defined our inspection type, so we do that one time, and then we would create the actual inspections in the Inspection Work Center. So what this lets us do is identify which items to hold for each one of our inspections using standard SQL syntax. We can also define an unlimited number of questions for each one of our inspections. So we can define text questions, multiple choice, true, false questions, numeric or date questions. And each one of these can have its own weight so that some questions are actually more important or some questions can influence pass and fail greater than other questions. And finally, we have actions that we can take during the inspection. So we can have actions that happen when we put items on hold. We can have other actions that happen when items pass inspection. And we can have other things that happen when items fail inspection. Typically, you'll have inspections scheduled to be running automatically every minute, every hour, every day, but you also have the ability of executing them manually if there's a reason that you only want to send this out on an infrequent basis. And so I mentioned that you complete inspections through the inspection manager. You can't complete the inspection questionnaires directly through the handheld, but let's take a look at how we can seamlessly integrate the inspections into our receiving workflow. So let's take a look at the regular receiving function on the handheld. So I'll go into a standard regular receiving function. I'm a multi-client environment, so I'm going to select my client. And then I'm just going to go and find a purchase order to start receiving. So select the purchase order from the list, and up comes a standard prompt that's showing me the purchase order number, the vendor name, the lines and units. Is this in fact the purchase order that I want to receive? Yes, so that's standard. Now what is not standard in all systems is a prompt for something like the outside truck temperature. And so now it's prompting me for the outside truck temperature where I could do a quick handheld inspection, one question that's going to be prompting me for an additional piece of information. And like I said, this is not a part of the standard receiving workflow. I enabled this by turning on one of the user-defined screens that we can inject into the receiving and the picking workflow. So in version 6.3, we added the ability of injecting steps into picking and receiving. So we can add up to 6 user-defined prompts in the receiving and the picking process. So I can add up to 2 questions when we add a purchase order or sales order to the wave. We can add up to 2 questions when we start picking or receiving the wave. And we can even ask 1 or 2 questions, user-defined questions, every time we pick or receive an item. So we have the ability of asking all of these user-defined questions as we go through. Now on my screen, it's got a fairly specific use case for this user-defined screen. So it's asking me for the outside truck temperature. My standard user-defined prompt doesn't have that information. So what I did is I went in with another module that we have. This was introduced in version 6.3 as well, the Screen Designer module that lets me modify every one of my handheld screens. So I can go and I can change the information that's on the screen. So I took my standard user-defined screen and using the Screen Designer tool, I modified the text that was getting displayed to the user so that it's the exact question that we want in our application. So we'll go back and we'll continue with the receiving process. So what's the outside truck temperature? I said that the outside truck temperature is 110 degrees. Okay, and now I just continue. So it was one additional prompt. I've got some validation on the prompt to make sure that what they enter is within the range that I'm expecting. That information is stored in our purchase order header table, so we do have a record of it. We move it to our historical tables, and as well we upload it to the ERP in version 6.4. So from a handheld perspective, that's it. I had one question that asked me pretty well, what is the temperature for this inbound container? Now, what are we going to do with that information? So behind the scenes, what I've done is I've created an inspection for temperature. So now, based on what the user entered on that user-defined field, if they enter something that's greater than 98 degrees, this will trigger a temperature inspection that's going to be performed through the inspection manager or through the tablet. So when this would execute, what this will do is it'll create the inspection over on the inspection manager, and somebody would be going and asking temperature questions for this specific purchase order that came in. Now from the handheld perspective, we'll start receiving our items as per the normal process. So I receive my items, I go in, say I'm going to receive the hardcover, where I'm going to receive 1, I'm going to receive 1, and up comes a message that says it must be placed in quarantine. So now interactively what's happened behind the scenes is the user has answered the user-defined question to say it was greater than 98 degrees. The inspection module has looked at that, flagged it for requiring inspection, and actually passed a message back to the WMS through the receive detail, the receive line table, to say all of the items you receive on this container require additional inspection. So now the handheld operator is directed to take this to the quarantine area for further inspection. And so if he didn't answer greater than 98 degrees for the external truck temperature, he would never see this message, and they just continue on with their operation. So now when I receive my item, the inventory that I receive is automatically going to be marked with inspection. It could be automatically marked with one of the user-defined hold codes that we saw earlier. And again, the receiver just continues unloading the truck. So that's what they focus on. Then a different person would go, they'd look at these temperature inspections, they'd find which one they wanted to do, and they'd perform the inspection. We have the system set up so for my temperature inspection, if it passes the inspection, it clears up the flags on the receiving file. It clears up the inventory so that if it does pass inspection, we make the inventory available to ship. Right now, everything that's being inspected is unavailable for allocation. It's unavailable for outbound orders. And then I actually write messages to the log file to say whether the inspection passed or failed. So we track each one of our inspections. We have this in the log file so we can always go back and report on, vendor performance or anything like that. So that's a fairly standard application that we see for Accellos One Inspect. Ask a simple question as part of your integrated receiving, picking, shipping process, and then come back and ask some more detailed questions that it's more suited for the questionnaire through the tablet or through the work center. I mentioned earlier that we take a look at these external inspections. So we'll take a look at a use of an external inspection in the WMS. So as you may know, a few versions ago, we added the ability to generate and schedule cycle counts in the WMS. So this basic cycle count scheduling interface is going to give us the ability to schedule bins for counting over a specified number of days. So the basic interface is going to say over the next 30 days, I want to count all of the bins in my warehouse. So bins are scheduled to be counted on a specific day, and you can track the count progress throughout the count period to make sure that you're on track. So what this tool doesn't let you do is schedule different counts for, say, high volume items or high value items or perishable items or any other advanced criteria you might need. But now you can do this through Accellos One Inspect. So as I noted earlier, Accellos One Inspect was originally designed for inbound and outbound quality inspection, but it can be used for much, much more. So external inspections let us select items for inspection, but not create the associated questionnaire. So we can use this to update a SQL, a MySQL, or Oracle table for things that aren't actually inspections. So let's take a look at the cycle count inspection. So the retrieval query doesn't matter. It has to have one, but it doesn't actually get executed. The only thing that happens, the only thing that's important is my pre-selection action. And so if we take a look at this, you'll see that there's actually a number of SQL statements that are going to be included in this query. So what this is saying is cycle count all of the bins over the next 30 days, which is exactly what we did when we used the generate cycle count tool a few minutes ago. So why are we using inspection? So let's take a look at the other one. Let's take a look at cycle count A. Now cycle count A sets the bins that are containing A velocity items to be counted over the next 5 days rather than over the next 30 days. So this ensures that your highest velocity items are going to be counted more frequently than the lower velocity items. So we could do something similar for high value items, different classes of products, or even individual items. You're pretty well only limited by your imagination. And so we could have combined both of these inspections into a single external inspection and scheduled them to run automatically on whatever frequency we need. I just kept them separate so that we could show them separately. So at a high level, that was Accellos 1 Inspect. We took a look at how we would perform an inspection using the inspection manager, completing the questionnaire, quickly how we would define an inspection, the questions that we can ask, and even how we would use an external inspection or even a more advanced inspection to kind of get this integrated directly, seamlessly with our receiving, and think about your picking or your counting workflows in the warehouse. I guess the important thing to come out of this is thinking about what's possible. Try to imagine in your own operation ways that you could use this tool and ways that you can apply inspection to your day-to-day operation.